Our Storm Watch coverage continues. Thank you so much for joining us, taking over now for Emily, who's been, of course, guiding you through this whole storm all morning long. And now it's my turn. I'm going to show you what's going on in terms of the radar across the region, because we do have quite a bit going on. What we're dealing with now is that the bulk of the system is moved off. However, we are now dealing with squalls that are setting up. Initially, these will be from the northwest, but we're expecting them to come up to the westerlies by about this afternoon and heading into this evening, which means that we'll be changing up the areas that are affected by the squalls. But these are going to be some intense bands of snow coming through. In terms of warnings, flash freeze warnings, which you do not see very often. That means that all of the precipitation, all the wet roads, puddles, what have you, is going to freeze very rapidly. The freeze warning is in place for Toronto and through Hamilton. We also are dealing with wind chills, so that by tomorrow, many areas across southern Ontario will feel like the minus 30s with extreme cold on the way. And we don't often see this either. Blizzard warnings through Midwestern Ontario. Possibly this is life-threatening situations in here if you happen to get stranded on some of these roads where we do expect to see closures. And then we have snow squall warnings in place up into the cottage country area. I want to join Kevin Yard right now, who's downtown Toronto, Front and Simcoe. Kevin, what is the mood on the street right now? Are people kind of like taking this in stride? It's winter and it's January and it's Canada after all? All right. Thanks so much, Kevin, for the update. We do have, again, the system moving away but leaving behind the squalls. That is certainly going to be a concern for travel in some areas where we could locally be seeing well in excess. And look at that. That's a 6 and a 0, folks. 60 centimeters of snow. And going over to Tom now for traffic. And Kevin made a good point. It doesn't take much of a grade, does it, Tom, to be able to not really get up some of these hills? As you mentioned, I mean, cold is really the order of the day. As we head into tomorrow, we're going to have a wind chill close to minus 30. We don't see much of a reprieve until the end of the week, and then it starts to get a little bit milder. But this is going to be, again, a flash freeze situation, very cold, plummeting temperatures, and possibly life-threatening travel to the north and west of the city. Thank you so much for joining us. We've got a lot to get to, so I hope that you'll stay tuned because we'll be covering as much as we can in each of these live segments. But there's just so much complexity and, frankly, wide geographic area being affected by all of the warnings and these storm systems that are coming through. So let's start things off with the radar. What we have, and you look at green, so Ottawa, Montreal, this is rainfall up into the St. Lawrence. So you're getting warm enough temperatures there to be getting rain. We also have lots of freezing rain warnings off into eastern Canada. But what's happening now for us is that we're setting up with the lake effect squalls. There are squall watches in place, and more concern is the fact that the temperatures are plummeting. It's already happening. It will continue to do so as we head through the next many hours. Environment Canada has issued a flash freeze warning in place. Ottawa through Kingston, Toronto, Hamilton through the Niagara region. Again, the temperatures are going to plummet very rapidly throughout this area. In addition to that, wind chill warnings. Overnight tonight, the wind chills will be in the minus 30s, possibly minus 40s. Even to start tomorrow morning off, that's the kind of cold that we're talking about. Now you're going to ask yourself, okay, so what's going on in the Midwest of Ontario? Oh, it gets worse. We have a blizzard warning in place. This includes Owen Sound through Barrie, Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, Cambridge, Orangeville, all included here in the blizzard warning. And then you've got snow squall warnings as well. Let's go over to Kevin Yard. He is in downtown Toronto. I'm taking a pulse of the people on the street to find out if people are prepared for this cold. And it's already being felt right now, is it not, Kevin?
Okay, back inside of the studio. We're live in Toronto.
Thank you so much, Kevin. She said, yeah, I suppose. Okay, let's take a look at what's going on here. This afternoon, heavy squalls are setting up. That is going to be a concern if you're traveling to the north and west of Toronto. And for those of you who commute up to Barrie, okay, this is going to be an area that we definitely need to be watching for excessive amounts of snow to the tune of, again, we're putting in here 30 to 60 centimeters plus in Midwestern Ontario, even up into the Barrie area, Orillia, Muskoka. Those regions could see well in excess of a foot of snow. So, Tom, I know you've been busy today. I suspect that you're probably going to be a busy person tomorrow, too.
Yep.
Our Storm Watch coverage continues, and this is a day where we have seen, depending on where you live, in the GTA and outside of the GTA for that matter. Some school closures, especially in rural areas, and also school bus cancellations. I suspect that we're going to be in the same kind of scenario heading into tomorrow morning as well. So that can cause, some headaches at times with trying to make some plans for the kids. But let's take a look at what's going on with our radar right now. The bulk of the system is moving away, the front coming through, the winds now from the north and west, and we are now seeing some very impressive snow squalls setting up. This is going to be actually a blizzard through the north midwestern portions of southern Ontario. So this is something we definitely need to be mindful of heading into tomorrow. If your travel plans take you to the north and west of Toronto, you've got to be properly prepared in your vehicle with an emergency kit, blankets, a fully charged cell phone. And if you can avoid travel at all, that would be the best course of action. We have flash freeze warnings in place from Ottawa through Kingston, Toronto, and Hamilton as the temperatures plummet very rapidly, and wind chills, -30s, even possibly hitting in the -40s, depending on where you are in this zone, throughout tonight and tomorrow morning, and then we'll see a slow rise in the temperatures over the next few days. It's going to take a couple of days to scour out all of that cold air. In terms of the blizzard warning, yes, it's in place for Kitchener, Waterloo, Orangeville, Guelph, Cambridge, up toward Barrie, Owen Sound, and down through the Goderich area. Let's turn it over to Kevin Yard. He is right downtown right now, live in Toronto, and he's been talking to people and how they're coping with the cold being one thing, but you're also very close to traffic there, Kevin, and you've been noticing that some people are having difficulty getting some traction at times, right? Gotta love when that happens. Thank you so much, Kevin. Gotta love when it happens live. Well, we do have, again, squalls setting up. That is really going to be the concern for some, especially up into areas like Orillia, Muskoka, even through Owen Sound. The snowfall totals here are going to be very high heading into the midweek. So it's going to be a couple of days, a few days actually, of snowfall. And then across southern Ontario, for some of those squalls, and they're far reaching, we may see some of that even reaching into the GTA. Let's turn it over to Tom, and I'm sure you too have seen some spinouts live on your cameras this morning too.
Oh yeah, lots of icing conditions.
We have blizzard warnings, wind chill, flash freeze. If you can name it, we've probably got one issued across somewhere in this country. In fact, I tweeted out a little while ago, but there's a map that we've drawn of all of the warnings across the country. I want to show you what's going on currently, though, with regard to the warnings that are in place that affect us in the GTA. And think that we're going to bring that up. We have actually some flash freeze warnings in place here for Ottawa, Kingston, Toronto, Hamilton. Then you get into the wind chills, -30s, -40s overnight tonight and tomorrow morning, so very cold. Blizzard warnings, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, Cambridge, Orangeville, Barrie, Owen Sound to Goderich, and then snow squall warnings up into the Muskoka area. So travel is definitely going to be a problem depending on where it takes you. If you can avoid travel at all, that would probably be the best course of action. I want to turn it over to Kevin because he's live downtown Toronto, and then we're going to go to Kitchener in a moment with Mike. But first to Kevin. Kevin, what happened with that accident that you saw in our last segment? Did he spin out right next to you?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Our next stop takes us to Kitchener, Waterloo. Actually, we're going to go to Waterloo itself, and that's where we find Mike Arsenault up in my neck of the woods. Mike, what's it like up there?
Region. I may be bunking down with you and your family. I hope you have a spare room for me. Back to you guys in the studio.
Yes, we do. We have a spare room. It's got your name on it. Let's take a look at what's going on. In terms of the snowfall totals, it's going to be plus 60 That's 60, yeah, 60 centimeters of snow plus up into the snow belt regions. Let's turn it over to Tom and find out what the roads are like at this moment. We have been checking in all morning with our teams on location across southern Ontario, and we're going to get you set up with what we can expect in terms of the weather, especially with regard to the warnings that are issued from Environment Canada. Also want to mention we have our live stream online. Check out the live stream from your computer, or then you're more than welcome, obviously, to do that. But we're going to be covering this on television, obviously, for as long as is warranted. And there is very good reason to be warranted because we have northwest winds and very big squalls now setting up through southwestern Ontario as we look at our radar. The system snow came through yesterday and through the overnight. That has since rain, and then it's going to transition over. there'll be rain by this afternoon. But for southern Ontario, the concern is about the cold air that's settling in. So much so that a flash freeze warning is in place. We've got widespread wind chill warnings. Temperatures will be in the -30s, possibly -40s by tomorrow morning. Blizzard warning through Orangeville will be right on the edge of that, through Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, Midwestern Ontario, and then we have through Parry Sound and down toward just north of Toronto, snow squall warnings in place. So this is certainly going to be a concern for anyone who has travel plans to the north of Toronto. Speaking of Toronto, Kevin Yard is live downtown this morning, and he's managed to wrangle together a bunch of people who I think seem kind of happy about the weather. I don't know. I see a lot of smiles. Cool. We have a snowfall forecast here for now through Wednesday. Big snow up into belts. Tom, this is going to be a problem, obviously, for people who want to travel to the north of the city, and we have to be mindful of making sure that our cars are equipped properly, right?
Well, that's absolutely true.
Travel is not recommended north and west of the city heading into tomorrow because we have blizzard warnings in place. And there are right now some very impressive squalls that have set up now that the northwest winds are coming in over the relatively warmer waters of Lake Huron, for example, through Kincardine here. Bayfield would be getting hammered with some pretty decent snow, and even up into the Georgian Bay area through Barrie, we're getting some decent squalls setting up. We do have flash freeze warnings in place. Ottawa, Kingston, Hamilton, Toronto, where the temperatures are plummeting, especially on untreated surfaces. We do have wind chill warnings all throughout southern Ontario because the temperatures are going to drop to the range of -30, -40 wind chills throughout tonight and into tomorrow morning. Blizzard warnings through Midwestern Ontario up to Barrie, Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph, Cambridge included in this, as well as Orangeville. And then we've got some snow squall warnings just to round things out across Georgian Bay. So lots of things going on here. Want to check in with Kevin Yard, who is downtown Toronto. One thing I've noticed with all of the people that you've been talking to, Kevin, is that people seem to be dressed appropriately, hoods, hats, mitts, the whole 9 yards, this young lady included. Thank you so much, Kevin. So we go from the flash freeze zone to the blizzard zone. That's where we find Mike Arsenault, who is live in Waterloo at this hour. And Mike, the blizzard warning, we don't see this kind of warning very often, and travel is not recommended in this area tomorrow, is it? Get those snow blowers tuned up because we're going to need them in many regions of southern Ontario, especially where we are getting some very impressive squalls already set up through southwestern, midwestern Ontario. Look at these bands coming in, very high snow rates through these regions. And in addition to that, we've got wind, very cold temperatures coming in, and the temperatures are already plummeting. We're into the wind chills in the -teens. The flash freeze warning is in place from Ottawa through Kingston down to Toronto and Hamilton and Niagara region. We have widespread wind chill warnings in place. So again, temperatures are going to feel like the -30s and possibly into that -40 range by tomorrow morning. Then we have blizzard warnings in place. So when you have a blizzard warning, the conditions are all coming together for this to last well in excess of 4 hours. So we're going to have very poor travel conditions. In fact, travel is not really even recommended through these areas with life-threatening conditions should you get into trouble and get stranded. And we have snow squall warnings in place as well. Let's go over to Kevin Yard. He is live downtown in Toronto this morning. He's been talking to people on the street about how they're coping with the temperatures as they plummet hour by hour. Kevin, how are things out there now? Thank you so much, Kevin. And there's going to be a lot of snowfall, and these snowbelt regions can see in excess of 60 centimeters of snow. Also want to mention, a lot of people want to, as Tom was alluding to earlier, escape from all of this. Travel throughout the states here, especially where we've got some very decent squalls down Buffalo way and upstate New York, is not recommended on some of these area thoroughfares south of the lower lakes, and we're going to have some really big snows. Let's turn it over to Tom and find out what our drive in the GTA is like now. We're starting to see any semblance of improvement. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Well, the temperatures are plummeting all throughout the day today, so we've already reached our max high. We're going to be seeing the temperature feeling like minus. This is for the day part of tomorrow. Keep in mind that tomorrow morning, this wind chill may be closer to minus 40. Okay, so lots of cold air. It's going to remain cold, though you can see gradually we start to pull out of it by the end of the work week. Saturday, some rain-snow mix coming in. Hamilton again. Wind chill by tomorrow, minus 32 with an actual temp of minus. Our Stormwatch coverage continues. We've got a lot to get to. There are so many warnings across the whole country. I think I counted 10 of them, all total, across the country. But for us in the GTA, we're concerned with a couple of warnings that we don't often see, actually. Let's start things off with what it looked like on the roads. Earlier this morning were a bit of a problem as travel was definitely slower than normal, and my own commute took about twice as long as it normally does. We do have some very big squalls that have set up now through southwestern, midwestern Ontario, from Georgian Bay, Lake Huron. Again, we have lots of warnings in place. For our concern, we're concerned about this flash freeze warning that extends through Toronto and Hamilton because of the temperatures plummeting. Any untreated surfaces here are going to be freezing up, and we have wind chill warnings as well all throughout southern Ontario, portions of Quebec as well. Wind chills in the minus 30s, minus 40s by tomorrow morning, and then it slowly improves a little bit as we head through about the midweek. Blizzard warnings. Travel not recommended in this red zone for tomorrow. Suspect there's going to be a lot of school closures here. Clearly bus cancellations, that sort of thing. And then we have snow squall warnings in place as well. Let's go to downtown Toronto. That's where we find Kevin Yard this morning, and he's been talking to people on the street as they're heading to the office, heading to work. A lot of people, of course, now back to work after having a long extended break. Kevin, what's the mood on the street? Thank you so much, Kevin. I want to mention that there's going to be a lot of snowfall through the snowbelt regions, in excess of 60 centimeters in some cases. Let's turn it over to Tom and find out what's going on our roads. You're talking about untreated versus treated surfaces, Tom. Are most of the surfaces treated as we head through this flash freeze? We have a lot of warnings in place around the GTA, across, actually right across southern Ontario for that matter. And these are warnings that we don't often see, like flash freeze, for example, blizzard warnings. You see these typically in northern Ontario, but for the south, it's a little bit more unusual. And we've got to set up, this is a massive low pressure system, massive storm. It's affecting a good portion of the eastern part of the continent. In fact, it was snowing in Atlanta not too long ago. So very cold air coming down all the way down into the southeast U.S. What we've got in terms of our conditions right now, certainly travel around the GTA, and Tom's been alluding to this, seems to be improving a little bit, at least, compared to what we've had earlier this morning. However, if you're traveling north, as many thousands of people do, up into the Barrie area, you're going to be running into some snow squalls, so be ready for winter driving conditions. You're heading west. Travel along the 401 is probably not too bad, I would suspect, until you get after Kitchener-Waterloo. You're going to run into some snow, and certainly north of that, some pretty decent squalls. We have flash freeze warnings in place across southern Ontario from Hamilton, Toronto through Ottawa. We also, in addition to that, have wind chill warnings, so the temperatures are plummeting to minus 30, minus 40 by tomorrow morning. We've got blizzard warnings in place. Any of these red zones, travel is not recommended. Life-threatening travel conditions through these areas because we're expecting road closures. If you get stranded and don't have the proper equipment with you, this could be a very dangerous situation. And then we've got snow squall warnings in place as well. So certainly squalls is the order of the day as we progress through the next 24 hours. Actually, 36 hours. Let's turn it over to Kevin. He's live in downtown Toronto at this hour. And you've been wrangling people together to talk about the weather and whether people are prepared for it or not, Kevin. What is it like out there right now? Thank you so much, Kevin. Well, we've got a lot of snowfall on the way. For some areas in excess of 60 centimeters of snow. And Tom, you know what? Good point about boots. I'm thinking as well, if people are traveling, maybe it's not a bad idea to stack, a set of boots in the trunk just in case you do happen to get stuck somewhere.
Yeah.
I do. I'm just the messenger, though. I take no responsibility for this at all. 7-day forecast, well, it gets a little bit milder by the time we get to the midweek and beyond. But certainly looking at some very cold temps, especially tonight through tomorrow morning. Wind chills could reach in the minus 40s.